Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan talking about something very important. Let's jump right in. FCC expedites sale of more than 200 radio stations to George Soros investment firm. Yes, you have heard that right. They expedited the process. They bypassed the traditional method in which people are allowed to do this. They even let him buy more than what people are allowed to buy. Joe Rogan's going to be touching on this a little bit. I'm going to go deeper into the story for you guys. I found some articles and whatnot. Then I'm going to play a clip from Patrick Bet-David. They actually go a little deeper into this whole thing, connecting it to a certain political candidate. Can you imagine which presidential candidate you think this is connected to? Oh, yes. It's not the one on my shirt. I can tell you that. Let's get right into it. Let's start off with the Joe Rogan clip as always. Let's go.
Nobody actually has an opinion anymore. They're just told, they're just told, hey, this is what we're going with for the next 2 hours.
I wonder how long they can keep that up with the internet, because the distrust in the media is at an all-time high. It's probably, it has to be higher than it's ever been in human history. It ever been in the history of printed words right now. More distrust than ever. And at the same time, you have these independent people that have become bigger than the media. That's never happened before. There's never been a thing where just an app that you get on your phone has 30 times more views than the top show at CNN.
Yeah.
That's never happened before. But now that's the world that we live in. And so propaganda is not effective anymore. And it's also the delivery method that they use. It sucks. They sit there with makeup on, with perfect clothes, and they said, right now in Syria, and they start reading these things, and they're reading them off the teleprompter, and you know that person could be working at Entertainment Tonight. They could be working at any other show. They're just a talking head.
Yep.
They're just, no one they know they're the mouthpiece for some giant corporation. No one thinks that's the real news anymore. You have to be like old boomers who are like real tired, like those old liberal boomers. They're still like MSNBC to the death, like the Stephen Kings out there.
Yeah,
MSNBC to the death.
Yeah.
That's
what I was saying about the baby boomer generation. I mean, I think that the media will die if things continue just the way they are and the censorship doesn't get too bad. I think the media is done when the baby.
Didn't George Soros just buy 200 radio stations?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
First of all, what a bad investment, because who the listens to radio?
Good.
That's a bad investment. But second of all, what are you going to do? Because one thing that I do find is that right-wing talk radio is probably the only that's like the only place where you get a lot of right-wing ideas. Like, there's a lot of local right-wing talk radio. The reason why I know is my mechanic, whenever he fixes one of my cars and he brings it back, he's always listening to right-wing talk radio. So I turned my car on the other day, and I'm listening to these guys argue about Kamala Harris and the border, and that she was the fucking border czar. They didn't swear, but they were going over this, and I was like, that's interesting. Like, maybe that's what he wants to stop. If you want to own 200 radio stations, you just start firing all those right-wing guys.
That's what I think.
You would stop a lot of that, because I think that's where a lot of people are getting their information that aren't using podcasts. Because it seems like I don't hear a lot of left-wing AM talk radio shows. Do you?
No.
Weird, right?
It is.
It's like the one area that seems to be dominated by right-wing talkers.
Well, we're probably about to.
But I don't know what a good move that would be. Maybe he knows more than me about how many people that affects. And maybe my mechanic, I should ask him.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's so wealthy, I don't think he really cares about a good investment.
Also, he's so old.
Just wants a megaphone.
He likes to manipulate governments. He likes to manipulate society. I think he thinks it's like his version of a video game.
Yeah.
I think he genuinely seems to enjoy it.
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
I think you're right. I mean,
Elon's openly said he thinks that guy hates humanity. Like that.
It appears that way.
That is a wild thing to say. It's such a wild thing to say, and it's such a wild thing to do, like a supervillain in a Batman movie, like some billionaire guy who likes to hire the most progressive district attorneys that's going to let people out of jail, and then fund the next person who's more to the left of that person, and just keep pushing it until you get tents everywhere, violence in the streets.
He's done a damn good job.
How come there's no right-wing guys like that to do it the other direction?
I always wonder that too.
I always wonder that. Well, it's also like if you look at the amount of donors that donate to the left versus donate to the right. Have you ever seen that chart?
No.
Nuts. The left gets so many more donations than the right does. Like, it's a giant difference.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, man. I think a lot of rich people feel guilty, and they get into philanthropy, and it also is a good way to cover their ass and make them look like better people. And the people that really go after you, if they don't think you're a good person, are generally the left.
That's a good theory. That's a good theory. I think it's a lot of virtue signaling why people do that. But just to get into some things that Joe Rogan touched on, and we're going to jump into a bunch of articles real quick, just some quotes, because it is wild what they've chosen to do in regards to this whole thing. Now, Joe Rogan suggested, is this really a good investment? Well, I would think it's a great investment because it gives you the opportunity to manipulate people. And Joe Rogan also asked, how many people does it affect? Well, apparently, all the radio stations that he's bought, it goes over 40 different markets throughout the United States of America, and it affects 160 million Americans every single day. So, good investment? Maybe not in regards to money made, revenue, how much it's going to go up. I mean, people do say it's a dying media. So not good investment there. Great investment in regards to manipulating the public, shaping public opinion. I mean, again, you look at MSNBC, look at CNN. Is that a good investment? It's on TV. They're on YouTube. They're everywhere. Are they a good investment? No. Plummeting constantly, but they're a necessary evil. So they never seem to go out of business. And I don't think they ever will, because I think they get their funding from places even worse than George Soros, I would think. So, again, they said, maybe they're going to fire a bunch of right-wing people in all this right-wing talk radio. Well, I would say, why fire? Why stop any of it when you can spin? The art of spin. Maybe all of a sudden they lose time slots. Maybe all of a sudden a bunch of left-wing people pop up, but maybe they just start spinning the narrative. Maybe all of a sudden you don't hear what they have to say. Maybe they don't get fired. That's always a thing on platforms. Not this platform, because it's the greatest. But some platforms that stream video, they decide to keep you around, not even demonetize you. But in the background, they're making sure that a lot of people don't see your stuff. Maybe a person's unsubscribed here. Sorry, no, because that's what happened. I'm not talking about subscribers. This platform has subscribers. I'm not talking about this platform. This platform's fantastic. Thanks, YouTube. But maybe you get unsubscribed. Maybe your notifications are turned on, but you don't get the notifications. But everything looks fine. So you can't actually complain. You can't say you're being censored because you can't prove it. So maybe some of that'll start happening on this front. So let's just get into these articles a little bit here. There's a whole bunch that can happen. FCC fast-tracks Soros' bid to dominate the airwaves. I like the way they said that. Last week, the FCC adopted an order to approve his purchase of 200 radio stations over 40 markets, exactly, weeks before the presidential election. That's also a thing. I didn't even think to add that in. The stations reach more than 165 million Americans. Sorry, correction. 165 million Americans. And the staff at the FCC are concerned that the move is politically motivated. No, not George Soros. Why would he do that? The commission's 3 Democrats voted for the move while the 2 Republicans voted against it. Under existing FCC rules, foreign company ownership of U.S. radio stations is not supposed to exceed 25%. They allowed George Soros to actually go over that. Let me read the rest of this. Soros took foreign investment to his bid and then filed a request for the commission to make an exception to the usual review process. And the reason I'm reading this is because it's going to make sense in a second when I read this article. The decision to fast track the approval process was bypassed a national security review, which is crazy. So let's switch over here. One of the Republicans, Brendan Carr, he actually said this. He said the commission's decision to today is their decision today is unprecedented. Never before has the commission voted to approve the transfer of a broadcast license, let alone transfer the broadcast licenses of over 200 radio stations across 40 markets without the following requirements and procedures codified in federal law. Not once. And yet the commission breaks new ground today without seeking public comments on altering our established regulations, without actually changing the rules on the books, and without seeking the feedback of other federal agencies. This is absolutely wild. So it's almost like, again, we're talking about Democrats here. They voted it through. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Weeks before an election for George Soros, a foreign entity. Why would they do that? I'm not sure if his son is American, but we'll find out about that in a minute. Also, what Carr said is, I think what's interesting about it is the FCC is not following its normal process for reviewing transactions that it has established over a number of years. It seems the FCC is poised for the first time to create an entirely new shortcut. So they're making a shortcut for this guy. This is crazy. This is also what he said here, right here. By all appearances, the FCC majority isn't just expediting, but is bypassing an established process to do a favor for George Soros and facilitate his influence over hundreds of radio stations before the November election. And this is not just some person saying this. This is someone who voted against this. Brandon Carr. He voted against this. He did not want to see this happen whatsoever, and they pushed it through anyway. I'm going to jump over to a Patrick Bet-David clip that I have here for you guys. Let's jump over here really quick. Get this out of here and bring this down. Patrick Bet-David shows us something that's even more telling to why this has happened. Listen to this.
Clip on Twitter. Go to the one that you put up. Rob explains exactly what happened. This just happened yesterday. Or 2 days ago. Why would FCC approve this? Why would FCC approve something like this? This didn't make any sense to me. Watch this here, folks, on what Soros just bought yesterday. Go ahead.
Is looking to expand his evil empire. In February, George Soros purchased Odyssey, one of the largest radio companies in the United States. I think it was for $300 million. He ended up purchasing 230 radio stations nationwide, including sports radio stations like WFAN in New York, K-Rock, which is a legendary rock station in Los Angeles.
K-Rock.
Purchased 230 radio stations. Think about that. Buying radio stations in the digital age of media. These stations are going bankrupt because they cannot afford to pay their bills. Talent is being consolidated, sales are down, streaming is up across all platforms, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, Rumble. Nobody is listening to the radio.
Well, why is he buying it?
Why do you think?
Not even just U.S. radio stations. He actually tried to purchase, and this was the oddest one that I found. He tried to purchase a Cuban radio station, WAQI 710 AM Mambia. It is a conservative Spanish radio station in Cuba. Why would you want to buy an AM conservative radio station in Cuba? George Soros is looking.
What a great take, right? So here's a question for you. So here's a question for you. Hey, conservatives, libertarians, independents who are a little worried, guess what? Where are you going to put your money? What are you doing with the money that you have? I'm talking to the rich guys, the real rich people who have the money. You know what Musk is doing? He put $44 billion on Twitter. Lost 75% of valuation within 2 years because of all the advertisers he lost. And he's driving it. What company do you think he's driving the most on a daily basis right now? It's Twitter. What do you see him being most active for? Twitter. Now, it's an integrated business because he knows through Twitter he's going to drive Tesla and he's going to drive, SpaceX and everything. So it's all integrated the way he's done. It's brilliant. But what are you going to do? What are you going to buy? Soros just bought 200. By the way, we can bitch and whine all we want about Soros. Soros is doing the right thing if he wants to impose his ideology and agenda to it. If he believes in what he believes in, and you want to be able to control the narrative, he did the right thing buying those 200 radio stations. He did the right thing buying those 200 radio stations. And who do you think had a meeting with Alex Soros yesterday, his son? You know who had a meeting with Alex Soros yesterday? Just take a wild guess. Well, the president who's running for president is Kamala. Who's her vice president? What's the guy's name?
Tim Walz.
The guy that was in Alex Soros' living room in New York.
He was in Alex Soros' living room yesterday in New York.
Oh, weird.
What kind of
Interesting.
alliance is that?
What do you think with Huma Abedin being
was
his
there.
new girl and all this stuff? What do you think he's doing there for? You think you know what's going to happen if Kamala wins? If Kamala wins without Iran doing anything and Trump being alive by the end of the election, it means they have a chokehold. They have a chokehold. You know what Zuck did recently, which was kind of interesting? What he did yesterday. Did you guys see what Zuck did yesterday?
He hired a libertarian advisor to help him approach the conservative media and conservative lobbyists.
Yes, that's what he did yesterday, because Zuckerberg is now saying that he relates, he sees himself more as a libertarian, no longer a guy on the left. And by the way, I actually believe this. I actually believe he's going through this. Can you go a little bit lower, Rob? So in private, Marxism identifies with the libertarian ideology sourced on New York. Zuck is trying to repair his image of Republicans who have accused him of anti-conservative. He refused.
Zuck got the notification from Trump that you're going to jail unless you shape up. And even if you do, if it's seen that you actually did help one side over the other in regards to the election, you're going to jail. Trump said you're going to jail for life. Trump was not playing around. He was very straightforward with Mr. Zuckerberg. But I just wanted to show you guys that. Then let's just pull this up, because he's not the only one. It wasn't just him hanging out with Alex Soros. Now, here's the thing about this whole thing. You're seeing a lot of articles that are saying George Soros. George Soros. It's all about George Soros. But in reality, George actually gave control of his money, everything, all the billions, to Alex here. Alex actually has control of it now. Alex actually made this decision. And about, I believe it was 8 months ago, maybe a year ago, 8 months to a year ago, Alex Soros said, well, there's a lot of people who are involved in politics and we have to be as well. So the fact that he's doing this makes perfect sense. Now, here's the thing. Patrick Bet-David just said, he's doing the right thing by purchasing these radio stations. Yes, if he can, he's doing the right thing. It's the FCC that did the wrong thing, in my opinion. Now, other than that, guys, I don't, this is a little terrifying, a little too 1984-ish for my liking. I don't know what's going to be going on from here. Watch how you listen to the radio, because me and my buddy were talking about this. We were like, when it comes to this whole thing, what's going to happen, because right now on YouTube, you can go from one person, you can go from me to Jimmy Dore, you can jump over the breaking points, you can go to Dave Peckman if you want, you can go over to the Young Turks, you can go all around. When you're just in your car passively listening to things, it gets into your subconscious very deeply, way more than you think, way more than you think. If you're someone who just listens to the radio, whatever they're talking about is getting into you. Now, the thing is, where you can change the channel on YouTube, you won't be able to fully do that on radio. Now, you can change the channel, but who's to say? I'm not owned by anybody. You can come here, and that's for sure. Okay? That's 100%. You can go to another YouTuber and another person, and you can probably hit a good 15 people who aren't owned by any entity at all. Radio, on the other hand, you switch that station, you might just go from George Soros Radio to George Soros Radio to George Soros AM to George Soros FM. It's not looking good. So we'll see what happens from here, guys. But I just wanted to bring you this information. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I have not listened to radio in years, thankfully, and I won't be starting anytime soon. I might, just to check out what's going on. We might go over and listen to some conservative radio, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I don't know if you guys realize Kamala Harris is actually pretty cool. Pretty cool. Guys hitting buttons and stuff. Who's the best presidential candidate we have today? Kamala Harris. That Tim Walz is pretty cool. JD Vance is weird. You have no idea. It might turn into that. And that might be funny, but it should be a little terrifying. Anyways, guys, 1984 is here. Have a great day. Like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Helps us tremendously. Other than that, I'm out.